Welcome to Autism Spa. I am your host, Shahriar, the Exec Director of the Autism Society of San Diego, also our sponsor for today's event. Today, we're honored to have Jill Escher, the President of the National Council on Severe Autism, on our program. Obviously, she's been a lifelong advocate, like a lot of autism parents. We all end up to be some kind of advocate for our children at some point in our life, whether it's full-time or part-time. There's no rest for the weary, right? So Jill is just a tireless advocate for this community. We're so honored to have her, and also to have her be our featured speaker on at the Autism Society's February 7th, 2025 conference here in San Diego. So if you're in the area, you can make it. Please get a ticket, come to the event. It's going to be an amazing gathering of parents and caregivers and professionals sharing ideas of how to make the lives of our kids and loved ones a little better. So Jill, welcome to Autism Spa. Tell us a little bit about how, your background. How did you end up in this? Obviously, your children led you to this role, but how did you end up in this particular role with the Severe Autism Organization? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I look forward to the conference in February. So, like everybody else, I was kind of muddling along, with life. And then all of a sudden, 2001, my 2-year-old son, Jonathan, was diagnosed with autism. And then later, my darling daughter, Sophie, was diagnosed with autism. And they're now 18 and 25. Johnny's 25, and they are nonverbal and, severely autistic to this day. So I was not looking for autism. Autism found me, and I was thrust into it, just like pretty much everybody else. And I think all of us, we all respond differently. I think every parent wants to somehow help not just their own children, but wants to help the community and the cause generally. Everybody, I think, has that impulse, and that manifests in different ways, with different people. And in my case, I've kind of meandered from interest to interest, doing different things. Like, for example, I was president of Autism Society San Francisco Bay Area for a long time. So I was very much in your role here in Northern California. I'm still on the board. I'm very involved with, for example, planning events for our autism community. Last year, we had about 75 events. Wow. It's very busy. It's a big part of my life.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And next year, we're going to do like 85. So it's often a bit much, but so I've done that. I'm a former lawyer, so I've done a lot of legal advocacy in the past. I'm a housing provider. I've done a lot of housing advocacy. I provide low-income housing for adults with developmental disabilities. And I'm first and foremost, I'm a science advocate. I'm deeply involved in trying to create pilot research that is probing new ideas about what causes autism. That's probably my biggest role. But I'm also, I think, known for my role as president of National Council on Severe Autism, which is something I co-founded in 2019. So we're 5 years old now, which is pretty amazing, almost 6 years old. And we kind of came in, and I think a lot of your listeners could appreciate this, to really fill a void in the advocacy landscape. What happened in the 2010s was something pretty dramatic. There was a really, I would say, significant retreat away from advocating for what we consider to be the very serious issues in autism about the most affected people, and a movement towards kind of characterizing autism as, neurodiversity, as, a movement towards acceptance, a movement towards, bettering people's lives for sure, but also I think minimizing sometimes the very challenging, very, 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 shall I say, distressing aspects of autism. So there was this big void. There was a lot of discontent. in the autism community. And a whole bunch of us parents got together and said, hey, the major autism advocacy groups aren't talking about our kids anymore, and we're sick of it. So we are going to speak up for our kids who cannot speak for themselves. We hit the ground running. We immediately struck a chord nationwide among people who were just so grateful. I cannot tell you, we're inundated with messages from people saying, thank you, thank you, thank you for speaking up on behalf of kids like mine. They felt marginalized for so long. So I'm still president there. We continue to advocate for those who are more severe. And there's so much that can be said about, the heterogeneity of the spectrum. But you brought up the question of like, wow, there's so many different autism advocacy organizations. How is someone going to make sense of it? It's a very good question. So, the biggest organization, from what I can tell, is Autism Speaks. And then they fill a kind of general advocacy role, I think, in terms of support, in terms of advocacy on the national and state level. They have a heritage of being strong advocates for research. That is no longer the case. They have completely moved away from that. I would say they do almost no serious work in that field right now at all. Autism Society, which we've both been involved with for a long time, they've been more focused on community building, community structures, community programs. And that's great. I'm so supportive of that 100%. I think building stronger autism communities is something dear to my heart. And I wish we had more of it. I get calls and emails from people all the time who really want to duplicate like what we're doing in the Bay Area, asking for advice. And I really want to help them. But then, National Council on Severe Autism, we focus again on that end of the spectrum where they really can't advocate for themselves. They're usually non or minimally verbal. They usually have intellectual disability. They usually have very significant functional impairment. And then Profound Autism Alliance, which you mentioned, Judith, who was on our board, on our founding board, founded that group because she had some specific things that she wanted to accomplish. I think mostly around, she can speak for herself. I never speak for Judith. She's a brilliant woman. Mostly around therapeutics and access to care. And that's a super important issue. There's so many issues. There's no shortage of issues. So I hope that
it does. And, look, nobody knows better than you and that this life can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Especially if you're young. We get a lot of young moms and dads in our support groups, and they're overwhelmed.
Totally.
Right? It's because we all say, look, kids don't come with a manual, and special needs kids especially don't come with a manual, right? Yeah. So everybody's making it up as they go along. And we always try to convey to young parents, hey, listen, don't be tough on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. The best thing you can do is just provide a solid home life and love your kids, be the best they can be. That's the best therapy for them. And it's a tough message to follow because it's natural to beat yourself up thinking you're not doing enough, right? It's just the way life is, unfortunately.
Especially when they're younger. When they're younger. Yeah, because I think there's a lot of pressure on parents to, do the right therapies, find the right people, get the right doctors, whatever. Right. In the hopes that they can alter the trajectory of their child's development.
And, I can't tell you how many family members and friends have sent me some obscure link, right?
Right.
It's like the victim. Well, I saw this thing and it's this therapy and it's oxygen, gluten, stem cell, some kind of vitamin therapy, and their kid snapped out of it as if, which is heartwarming in a way because they're thinking of you. I think that's a beautiful thing. But it's also something that if you don't have the discipline to let go of those things and just focus on, like you say, the science and what really is important, you could burn yourself out easily. You're chasing after every rabbit hole, right? How many parents have done that?
Yeah, and they do. I think there's a lot of myth still about early intervention, and it puts a lot of pressure on people. They feel a lot of guilt, if they don't try everything in the book, right? Yeah.
Right. In fact, it's funny you say that because I remember one young mom that came to our group and she was choked up, she was crying, she was trying to communicate, and she wasn't sad that her child was diagnosed with autism. Um, like I said, she was worried that she's not enough, that she's
Yeah.
not
Wow.
doing enough.
Yeah.
Right? How many
Yeah.
of us feel that way? That am I enough? I mean, and of course, when you're a younger parent, you're more susceptible to that guilt and
Yes.
I don't know, not self-pity, but bringing yourself down.
Yeah.
It takes a certain degree of maturity and resilience to be able to weather those early years so you can
Mm-hmm.
survive. This is a marathon. So you can survive the
Yeah.
next 50, 60 years,
Yeah.
right?
And it never goes away, by the way. I'm
Uh,
always questioning, myself to a
yeah,
degree that is not comparable to what you have with like a typically developing kid.
right,
I'm always, kicking myself over this or that. Like my daughter just develops she had her first seizure
right,
a week ago, and that was beyond terrifying.
right.
So, of course, all the self recriminations, kick in. And about, am I now providing her the right care? Am I watching her closely enough? I mean, it never ends. It never ends.
Yeah. Well, you're human. And
Yeah.
this is what we try to communicate to people. Look, you're human. You're not a machine. You need your rest. You need your rejuvenation so you can come back in
Yeah.
and since I manage a dadvocate group here in San Diego, uh, we started that here and because dads process grief and stress differently than moms do, right? This
Yes,
is
I think
natural.
that's true.
We
Yeah.
process things differently. So we have different ways of projecting that. Dads want to fix things, right? And when something doesn't need fixing, it just needs listening to.
Yeah.
And moms, we said, they beat themselves up and they want to talk about it, and they don't always have a understanding audience. God knows family is important. Family doesn't always understand what you're going through. I've actually found people in this community, people that we just met in a conference or an event, immediately
Yes,
understand what you're going through more than your own family and loved ones, which is just
totally.
disorienting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
it?
it's crazy. It's
Yeah,
like there's sort of an autism we are the world going on. Like it doesn't matter what our backgrounds are, what
right.
our race, color, religion,
Nope.
socioeconomic status, like all that kind of melts away because we get each other on a
Right.
deeper level than all of that. And yeah, I've made so many very close friendships with people I never would have thought it would have been
Right.
my bestest friends. And yeah, that is sort of a weird gift of autism that it does immerse you in another world where you connect, I think, more broadly than you would have like with just neurotypical
Right.
kids.
No, it is, and it's a beautiful thing. Sometimes, again, in the dad groups, some people, not in the dad groups, but in the other support groups I attend, um, they they question their lot in life. Why me? Right?
Mhm.
And that's a natural question to have, but my advice to them always, and I would love your feedback on this, I never question that. I never worry because no matter how difficult the situation you have it, there's always somebody worse. There's somebody worse off. You have, my
Yeah.
child was going to school with, severely impacted physical, mental challenges, kids.
Yes.
So even though sometimes we have our rough days and it's easy to feel overwhelmed and just so distraught to feel sorry for yourself, um, someone already has a tougher challenge than you do. And it's
Yeah.
important to feel centered and be able to put things in perspective. And I'll just say, and I would love your feedback on this. Most people that are outside of this world have no idea what your typical Tuesday looks like. Right?
No.
Right? So
Oh
when I
my
explain,
God.
yeah, here's what we do. I see this wrinkled foreheads and really depressed look. I feel like I gave him some bad news. Now I feel bad that I told because they ask me, hey, how's it going? And I tell them, oh yeah, this thing happened, and then I feel bad. I really wish because you weren't prepared to hear what I just laid down because you're not in this world. which is a difficult way to relate to other people that are not a special needs parent.
Yeah.
Do you find that in your world? I mean, relating to other people that don't have the same life experience, lived experience that you do?
Oh, I think, what you said, people just have no idea what a typical day is like, when you have not just somebody with severe autism, but severe autism with behaviors. And I should preface this by saying, both of my kids have severe autism. My son has severe autism with history of extreme behaviors. Yeah. My daughter has severe autism with almost no behaviors, right? So I have the whole spectrum of severe autism. Right. So it's different. And so, my daughter, she presents certain challenges. Like she has pica. She's often, putting inedible objects in her mouth. That has landed her in the hospital twice, unfortunately, because of that. It could have killed her both times. So it does come with challenges, but she's sweet. Her demeanor is sweet, and she's happy and cheerful and social, right? But my son, on the other hand, has a history of extreme property destruction, extreme at times, aggression and self-injury, and elopement, pica, you name it. Right. So, there were days where I had not a moment of rest. Right. And I really mean that, like not a single moment of repose, because I was constantly chasing after him or fixing something he had broken or calling a doctor or doing something. And it was a level of stress that I think people cannot really imagine unless they've done it. It's amazing. And as I said, he no longer lives with us. We had a series of fairly extreme and dangerous incidents in our home, and we had to place him out of the house. So he's no longer with us. I see him every day. I take him out every day. We're very close, and I love him to pieces. And he's also on medication now, which has really been a game changer for him. If I have one regret, it's not putting him on medication earlier. I will say that. Right. He's doing better now in his own home with staff than he was doing at home.
And look, I get those are tough decisions. We talked about it before the program.
Oh, yeah.
When to put a child on medication, when to decide when they need to live somewhere else. Look, we get it. My advice to parents is don't judge yourself. You need to do what's best for your family. But at some point, especially if you have another sibling or other people in the family that you need to take care of, you need to make some tough decisions. And we get it. It's tough. It's not easy. I think, and as far as the stress level, I think I read somewhere, I'm sure you may agree, parents of severely autistic kids experience the same thing as soldiers do as PTSD. Right? Because I've been there. I've had episodes where I'm sitting there on the couch just shaking. And I'll just tell you honestly, drinking doesn't help.
No.
Drinking does not help at all. Whatever escape you think, escaping into whether sports activity or going out with your friends or some kind of rejuvenation activity does help reset your psyche into what you have to manage. So I know parents feel guilty sometimes about taking care of themselves, but I couldn't stress that enough. That's better than any medication, any other. Take care of yourself. Take a minute, if you can. I know it's incredibly difficult. God knows who hasn't struggled with in-home support care, the nannies, caregivers. They do not fall off the tree. It's very difficult to keep one that works for you throughout your child's life. We had one where it was easy when he was a child. At some point, he outgrew the nanny. And the nanny said, I feel afraid, even though he's sweet. So it is what it is. In the little minute we have left, Jill, looking at the February 7th conference, what do you want parents and caregivers to walk away from your talk? You'll be there as our featured speaker. What's the most important takeaways you want to leave people with?
Well, they've assigned me to speak in 2 breakout sessions. And the first one is on, I think it's called Profound Autism, the Move Towards Clarity. So that is about sort of how we conceptualize diagnosis, how we label our children? What are the consequences of these various diagnostic approaches and labeling schemes? And what might the future look like? So that one is a little bit abstract. The second one, I think, is a lot less abstract. It's the title is something like "Autism Parents Cannot Die!" exclamation point.
Right.
Which is something I speak about a lot. And that's a little bit more pragmatic, talking about, well, how do we prepare for the inevitable, fact that we will, meet our own demise and leave the world with a child who needs 24/7 support. So that is not easy. And obviously, only so much can be accomplished in one breakout section. But this is a topic that I think is really foremost on the minds of parents of adults with autism. And that population is growing and growing and growing. It will become more and more of an issue. And we really need better pathways forward to secure the futures of our dependent children.
100%, and especially on housing, we want to talk with you about that later. It's one of our priority projects here in San Diego. Couldn't be more important. So thanks a million, Jill Escher, President of the National Council on Severe Autism. You will be one of our featured speakers on the February 7th conference here in San Diego. If you haven't signed up, sign up. We will see you then, and hopefully we'll keep talking. Thanks so much.
Yeah, looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you.